My husband couldn't pay his own living expenses after declaring, "From now on, our finances are separate." I didn't react harshly, just calmly let him experience everything. My name is Emma, 40 years old and a full-time housewife. I've always believed that families should work as a team. 18 years of marriage, one teenage daughter, and a house we built together. These weren't just milestones, they were proof that we were in this together. But I guess I was wrong. That Friday night felt no different from any other. The scent of roasted chicken, crispy skin, rich juices pooling beneath it, drifted through the kitchen. Emma stood by the counter, humming softly as she sliced into the golden brown bird. Lily, our 17-year-old, moved around the dining table with the ease of someone who had done this 100 times before, straightening forks, aligning plates, setting napkins just right. It was our ritual, our thing. I walked into the dining room, loosening my tie, feeling the weight of my decision settle on my shoulders. I'd played this conversation over in my head for days, rehearsed it like a speech. It was fair, logical, it made sense. And yet, as I stepped inside, my stomach clenched. Emma looked up at me, her hazel eyes flickering with quiet curiosity, just for a moment before she went back to plating dinner. Lily, completely unaware, shot me a grin. "Took you long enough, Dad. I was about to start without you." I forced a smile, but it felt tight. Forced. I pulled out my chair at the head of the table, placed my hands flat on the wood, and took a slow breath. "I have something to say." Emma barely glanced at me as she set down a steaming plate in front of me. "Rough day at work?" she asked casually, smoothing out her apron. "Not exactly," I said. I cleared my throat and sat up straighter. "I've been thinking, and I've decided that from now on, we should separate our finances." The words hung in the air, heavy, waiting to drop. Emma's hand paused mid-air, just for a fraction of a second. Lily, fork halfway to her mouth, blinked. I kept my voice steady. "It makes sense. We've always pooled everything together, but that's not exactly fair, is it? You should control your own money, and I should control mine. We'll split expenses. I'll give you a fixed amount for household costs, and the rest I'll handle myself." Emma set the serving spoon down, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and met my gaze. She didn't blink, didn't frown, didn't ask why. Instead, she nodded. "All right," she said. Just like that. No argument, no questions, no resistance. It threw me off balance. I had braced myself for something, anger, disbelief, maybe even a heated discussion about how this was supposed to work, but she just agreed. I shifted in my chair. "I just think it's the best way to handle things moving forward," I continued, as if she hadn't already responded. "This way, there's no confusion. You spend what you earn, I spend what I earn. We each handle our own contributions." Emma gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "I understand." Something in my gut twisted. Lily looked between us, brows furrowing. "Wait, hold on," she said, setting down her fork. "Are you saying Mom has to budget for all the groceries, bills, and everything while you keep your money separate?" I exhaled through my nose. "I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is a way for us to have financial independence." Emma reached for her glass of water, took a sip. Her fingers rested lightly against the rim. "If that's what you think is best." That was it? I studied her face, searching for a crack, a flicker of resentment, a trace of tension, but she was unreadable, perfectly composed. The food on my plate suddenly felt less appetizing. Lily let out a dry chuckle. "Ha!" She crossed her arms, leaning back in her chair, eyes locked on me like she was watching an animal try to chew off its own foot. "And what about when you need something, Dad? Like, I don't know, groceries, gas, new clothes?" I waved a hand dismissively. "I'll handle it." Lily gave a small, amused shake of her head. "Okay, sure," I ignored her. Emma, meanwhile, continued eating, unbothered, as if I hadn't just flipped our financial arrangement upside down. It should have felt like a win. I had expected resistance, but instead I got immediate compliance. But something felt off. I stabbed a piece of chicken, chewed slowly. You sure you're okay with this? I asked after a moment. Emma glanced at me, then at Lily, then back at her plate. She wiped the corner of her mouth with a napkin and nodded. Of course, Richard. If that's what you've decided, then that's what we'll do. Lily snorted under her breath. I shot her a look, but she just smiled and shoved another bite of food into her mouth. The conversation shifted. Lily started talking about her upcoming school project. Emma asked her about her schedule for next week. The moment passed, slipped away as if it had never happened. But I felt it lingering under the surface, like a hairline cracking glass, invisible until too much pressure was applied. Emma wasn't upset, she wasn't worried, she wasn't even slightly annoyed, and that was what unsettled me the most. The morning after Richard's grand announcement, I woke before my alarm, stretching into the silence of our bedroom. A strange calm settled over me. A quiet certainty that this day marked the first of something new. I slipped out of bed and walked to the kitchen, the rhythm of my morning unchanged. The coffee maker sat on the counter, gleaming in the early light, waiting for me to press brew, but I didn't. For 18 years, I had made sure Richard's coffee was ready before he even set foot in the kitchen. 18 years of anticipating his needs before he had to ask. Not anymore. Instead, I reached for my own tea, savouring the warm scent of chamomile as I leaned against the counter, listening. Right on cue, I heard the shuffle of slippers, the creak of the floorboards, and then the hesitation. The cabinet opened, a pause, then another. Finally, his voice clipped with confusion. Emma? I smiled into my mug. Oh, I didn't buy it, I called back casually. Too expensive for my budget. Silence. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the slow unraveling of assumption. He said nothing, but the sound of the pantry door opening and closing spoke volumes. By dinner time, the shift in our home had begun to take shape. Lily and I sat at the table, finishing our meal while Richard's chair remained empty. It wasn't deliberate, at least not at first. He came home later than usual, shoulders tight, eyes weary. I knew that look. It was the one he wore when he expected comfort, when he assumed his world would still be waiting in the same place he left it. Except tonight, it wasn't. The plates were already washed, the leftovers neatly packed away. Did you... he started, his voice trailing off as he took in the scene. I didn't look up from my book. Lily and I already ate. The pause stretched between us. Right, he muttered. I heard him open the fridge, and I waited. A beat, then another, and then the sharp intake of breath when he saw it. The note I had left on the counter. This is for Mum and Lily. Dad's is on the right side of the fridge. I kept my gaze on the pages in front of me, but I didn't read a single word. I was too busy listening. The fridge door closed a little too hard, the sound of rustling plastic, the shuffle of items being pushed aside, and then nothing. Because there was nothing, at least not for him. I knew exactly what was waiting behind that door. On Lily's side, fresh fruit, home-cooked meals, a bottle of lemonade she liked, and on his side, a dry sandwich hastily wrapped, a bottle of water and an aging stick of butter. He didn't say a word, but I could feel his frustration radiating through the kitchen like a live wire. Good. Let it settle. Over the next few days, the pattern became clear. Richard no longer had the quiet luxuries he never noticed, the gas tank that magically filled itself, the freshly stocked pantry, the seamless way our home functioned. And he was starting to feel it. The first real crack appeared on Thursday morning. I was lacing up my sneakers when he cleared his throat. Emma, the internet bill is unpaid. I looked up, meeting his eyes with practiced ease. Oh, I only pay for the mobile plan now. The home internet is in your name, remember? A flicker of something crossed his face. Disbelief, irritation, maybe even fear. I turned back to my laces. You said we should live on what we earn. A beat of silence. Then a muttered, right. I walked out the door, leaving him standing there with nothing but his own words echoing back at him. By the end of the week, the unraveling had become impossible for him to ignore. That Friday, I baked cabbage pies. His favourite. Not for him, of course. When I set them on the counter, Lily grinned. Dad's gonna lose it. I smirked, slipping the note beside the tray. This is for Mum and Lily. That night, he came home late again. I was curled up on the couch with a book, Lily on her phone across from me. We didn't say anything when he walked in, but we felt it. The shift, the weight of realization settling into his bones. I heard him move through the kitchen, the way he paused before the fridge, the sharp breath when he opened the door, then the sound of the fridge closing. Too hard. I glanced up, just in time to catch the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched as he turned away, and then, as if it were an afterthought, he muttered, "Guess I'll order something." I didn't respond, but when Lily looked at me, her eyes sparkling with barely contained amusement, I knew she understood. He thought he could just buy his way out of this, but money wasn't the problem. For the first time in years, he was feeling the weight of everything I had carried, and I was going to let him feel every ounce of it. That night, after Lily went upstairs, I walked into the kitchen to find Richard sitting at the table, staring at his phone. The glow of the screen highlighted the tension in his face, the frustration in his furrowed brow. "What's wrong?" I asked, feigning innocence. He let out a slow breath, setting his phone down a little too hard. "I thought I had more money in my account." I tilted my head. "Oh?" He rubbed a hand over his face. I mean, I knew I'd be covering my own stuff, but somehow... He exhaled. "It's disappearing fast." I sipped my tea. "Gas? Takeout? Those little things add up." His jaw tensed. "I know that." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" He didn't respond, because we both knew the answer. Richard had never truly managed a household. He had lived in it, benefited from it, assumed it would always function without him having to lift a finger. And now? Now he was finally seeing the cost. The final blow, I set my mug down and met his gaze. "Richard," I said, keeping my voice level, "this is what you wanted." His lips parted, but no words came. "You wanted us to be financially independent," I continued. "To live on what we earn," he swallowed. I leaned forward slightly. "So tell me, how's that working out for you?" His face twisted into something I couldn't quite name, frustration, regret, maybe even realization. But I didn't wait for an answer. I stood, taking my tea with me, and left him sitting there, alone, in the kitchen I had once made a home. The man who had always assumed he was in control, now drowning in a reality he had created. And I simply let him. It was bound to happen sooner or later. I had watched Richard unravel for weeks, watched as he stumbled through the mess of his own making, confusion turning to frustration, frustration turning to helplessness. At first, he tried to act like nothing had changed, as if he could power through the absence of convenience, the missing safety net that had cushioned him for years. But the cracks were undeniable now. The dry sandwiches, the empty gas tank, the overdue bills piling on the counter with his name on them. It was only a matter of time before he... And tonight, he did. He came home late, the slump in his shoulders heavier than usual. He didn't drop his keys on the counter like he normally would. Instead, he clutched them tight, like he was holding on to something. Anything still in his control. Lily had already gone upstairs, leaving us alone in the quiet hum of the kitchen. I kept my back to him, wiping down the counter, waiting. It didn't take long. He cleared his throat, shifting on his feet. "Emma, we need to talk." I didn't turn around. "Oh, I've been thinking," he continued, forcing a casual tone, as if this wasn't the moment he had been dreading. Maybe this whole separate finances thing was a little... drastic? I set the dish towel down, finally turning to face him. His eyes flicked up to meet mine, searching, already bracing for relief. Because he thought I'd say yes, that I'd drop everything, tell him we could go back to the way things were, that I'd be waiting, arms open, ready to clean up the mess he made. I smiled. "No." It took a second for it to register. "What?" I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "No, Richard, we're not going back." His mouth opened, then closed. I could see the calculations in his head, the rewiring, the disbelief settling in. He let out a hollow laugh, shaking his head. "Come on, Emma, I get it. You made your point, okay?" I understand now. Oh, do you? I asked, raising an eyebrow. His jaw tensed. Yes. And I'm saying, let's fix this. I tilted my head. Fix what? The budget, the expenses, everything. He gestured vaguely, like he couldn't quite name what had gone wrong. We should go back to how things were. I studied him for a moment, letting the silence stretch just long enough for discomfort to creep in. Then, with deliberate ease, I reached for the drawer near the sink. The one he never paid attention to. I pulled out a thick envelope and set it on the table. Richard frowned. What's that? I slid it across to him. Take a look. He hesitated before opening it, and when he did, the moment his eyes scanned the contents, the bank statements, the business records, the savings accounts, the air shifted. His face paled. This. He swallowed, flipping through the papers, his fingers shaking slightly. What is this? My financial records, I said evenly. The money I've been saving, the business I started, the income I've been making. He blinked. Business? I nodded. I started an online store 3 years ago. It's done pretty well. His eyes darted back to the papers, scanning numbers that he had never imagined would be mine. You... He let out a shaky exhale, trying to steady himself. You've been making this much? I smiled. Almost as much as you. Some months even more. Richard's grip on the papers tightened, his knuckles turning white. Why didn't you tell me? I held his gaze, my voice quiet but unyielding. Because you never asked. The silence between us was thick, the weight of realization pressing down on him. And then... footsteps. Lily appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the exchange with a knowing glint in her eyes. She had been waiting for this moment. So, she said, leaning against the frame, are we finally having the mom isn't helpless conversation? Richard's head snapped toward her. Lily, this isn't... Oh, but it is, she interrupted, pushing off the wall. I mean, it's been pretty funny watching you figure it out. She looked at me, a smirk playing at her lips. Should I tell him about my savings account, or do you want to? Richard stiffened. Your what? Lily grinned. Oh yeah, I have a savings account. And investments, she shrugged. Mum taught me how to manage money years ago. Richard's mouth opened, but no words came out. Lily patted his shoulder as she walked past. Turns out, women don't just sit around waiting for men to save them. Wild, right? With that, she disappeared up the stairs, leaving behind a stunned silence. I turned back to Richard. She's been investing small amounts in the stock market, I said, almost conversationally. She's already saving for college. He looked at me then, truly looked at me, and I saw it. The moment the ground shifted beneath him. The moment he realized he wasn't the sole provider. That he wasn't in control anymore. That somehow, without him ever noticing, Lily and I had built a world where we didn't need him. Richard slumped into the chair, hands gripping his face. For years, he had lived under the illusion that he was the one holding this family together. That without him, without his paycheck, everything would fall apart. But the reality? He had been coasting, blindly assuming that just because I wasn't waving pay stubs in his face, I wasn't contributing. That just because I wasn't complaining, I wasn't keeping track. But I had been. And I had planned for this day. Finally, he spoke. His voice was quieter now, the arrogance stripped away. Why didn't you say anything? I exhaled slowly. Because, Richard, I wanted to see what would happen when I stopped doing everything for you. He swallowed. And? I gave him a small, almost sympathetic smile. You weren't ready for it. The silence stretched, thick with the weight of everything unspoken. Then, finally, Richard let out a slow, broken laugh. Damn. I tilted my head. That bad? He looked at me. Really looked at me. For the first time in years. And then, after a long pause, he nodded. Yeah, he admitted. That's bad. The shift in power. There was no shouting, no dramatic argument, just the quiet, undeniable truth sitting between us. Richard had built his life on the assumption that he was the provider, the head of the household. And now he knew the truth, that he had never been the one holding this family together. I was. I always had been. And now? He had to decide what to do with that knowledge. Richard had been unraveling for weeks, his frustration mounting as reality sank in. The empty fridge, the unpaid bills, the weight of responsibility that had once gone unnoticed. He was drowning in it. And now here he was, sitting across from me at the kitchen table, ready to surrender. "Emma," he started, his voice careful, measured. He was trying to negotiate with me as if this was one of his business deals. "I think maybe we should go back to how things were." I lifted my mug of tea, watching him over the rim. "Back to how things were?" He nodded. "Yeah, the joint budget, the way we used to handle money. I get it now, okay? I get how much you were doing and He hesitated, swallowing hard before forcing out the words. "I didn't appreciate it, but I do now." I set my mug down slowly. I could see it in his eyes, the relief, the expectation. He thought I'd say yes, that I'd clean up his mess, that I'd fall right back into the role of the woman who had once quietly held everything together for him. I smiled. "No," he blinked. "No? No, Richard, we're not going back." His brows furrowed. "But Emma, come on, you've made your point." I tilted my head. "Have I? Yes." He let out a breath, running a hand through his hair. "I get it now, okay? This was a wake-up call. I see how much you were handling, and I shouldn't have..." His voice faltered. I don't want things to be like this anymore." I folded my hands on the table. "Neither do I." Something flickered in his eyes. Hope. Until I added, "But we're not going back to how it was." His jaw tensed. "Why not? Because that version of our marriage wasn't fair." I met his gaze, steady, unwavering. "You thought you were in control, Richard, but the truth is, I was doing the work. You just didn't notice." His lips parted slightly, like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Because he knew I was right. "This marriage isn't about one person managing everything while the other coasts," I continued. "It's about partnership. And if we're going to move forward, it has to be equal." A long silence stretched between us. Then I leaned back, watching him carefully. "But," I said, "there is something else we can do." His eyes narrowed slightly. "What?" I smirked. "You can work with me." His frown deepened. "Work with you?" I nodded. "In my business, instead of trying to control everything, why don't you join me?" A dry laugh escaped him. "Emma, I don't know anything about whatever it is you do." I shrugged. "You know business, you know strategy, you love numbers and profit margins. Why not use that for us instead of some faceless company?" He hesitated because he knew what this was. A test. I wasn't offering him a way out. I wasn't saving him. I was giving him a choice. To work with me, or to be left behind. For a moment, I thought he'd walk away, that his pride would keep him from stepping into my world, a world he had ignored for so long. But then he exhaled, rubbing his temples before looking up at me. "Okay," he said. "I'll do it." I nodded, satisfied, because now the rules had changed forever. Richard had no idea what he was walking into. For years, he had lived in his carefully curated bubble, believing that because he brought home a paycheck, he was the one running the household. But in my world, he was the rookie. At first, he struggled. He fumbled through meetings, tripped over logistics, got lost in the spreadsheets that I had been handling on my own for years. And I let him, because he needed to see what I had been doing while he was busy assuming I had nothing of my own. One afternoon, I caught him watching me as I navigated a tough negotiation with a supplier. I didn't falter, didn't hesitate, didn't need his input. And for the first time, I saw something shift in his face. He wasn't frustrated, he wasn't defensive, he was impressed. And that was the moment I knew he finally saw me. 3 months passed. 3 months of learning, of unlearning, of rebalancing. Richard started to find his place. He still had his job, but he spent more time in our business now, managing things he was actually good at, and we started working together. Then one evening, as I pulled a familiar tray from the oven, Richard walked into the kitchen. Cabbage pies. The scent filled the air, wrapping around us in something warm. something familiar. I set them on the table, wiping my hands on a towel. He smirked. Is there a share for me this time? I raised an eyebrow. Do you contribute to the cost of the ingredients? Lily, sitting at the counter, snorted. God, it took you long enough. And then, for the first time in months, we all laughed. A real laugh, a family laugh. Because after everything, after the mistakes, the lessons, the shifting balance, we had finally figured it out, and this time we were truly in it together. Richard learned a valuable lesson. What about you? If your husband did the same, how would you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below.